All right, for this next lesson, I'm just going to be going over what a request and a response looks like, and I'm going to show a get and a post request, and um, show you a few little things that you might have not noticed while reading or looking at tutorials online. So, um, first thing first, I'm going to explain a little bit about my setup here. I have Burp Suite and I have it set up to this browser. What I'm on right here, you can see it's 127.0.0.1, which is specifically port 8081. Uh, what I actually have running here is a web server that is only local to me. I have it set up in this thing called Docker, and you can see DVWA, which stands for Damn Vulnerable Web App, and you can see it running right here, and it's running on port 8081. So what Damn Vulnerable Web App is it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a very vulnerable web app, usually used for, you know, learning the ropes. So what I've done here is uh, we're going to delete all the cookies and we're going to we're going to go to that URL and let's look. So um, I've highlighted our HTTP request to 127.0.0.1, and here is our 8081 host, 8081 port. The method that was used, the HTTP method that was used, which is a GET, and the URL, which is for this particular case is it will only show the file path here in burp. So it's login.php. That's the file that we fetched. And then further down, you'll see status is 200, the length, which is the number of characters, and the MIME type, which is the what it returned, the content type that the response turned, and the extension of the file itself, which is PHP. Also, once you start learning more about HTML, you'll see, hey, this is the title. This is what's between the title tags, and then the IP address is set that the IP address that it has, and any cookies that might have been set during that time. So if we come here, I'm going to enlarge this for you. We can see our request, which our request here is HTTP GET and slash login.php, and then what version of HTTP was used, which in this case is 1.1. And the next portion, all of this are the request headers. In this case, one of the request headers being, well, which host are we sending all this information to? In which case, this is 127.0.0.1, 8081. The user agent, which is it's information about the browser that you're using sent to the um, sent to the server. In which case, we're using Mozilla Firefox. Gives a bunch of information about that. Another way of thinking about the user agent is where is like what type of browser are you using? So um, if you were using a mobile phone, for example, uh, if you typed in, you know, this particular address or a different web application that served up mobile versions of their own application, they would check the user agent to see, hey, is this coming um, from a mobile user agent? If so, serve up the mobile version of this application. Uh, a lot of things can be uh, gleaned from the user agent. The next few headers are accept headers, and this is just telling the server, hey, this is what we're expecting back from you from this. In which case, this first one, accept, is just saying, hey, we're expecting a text HTML page. All right, that makes sense. We're also expecting or accepting anything doing with XML or images or anything of that sort. This last portion here, star slash star, that's our wild card. That's saying I'll accept basically anything. Whether I can run it or not is a different story. The next header is accept language. What language do we want this to be sent back in? English for this particular case. And then any encoding, this next one is just any encoding schemes we might need. So this connection close, this has to do with the TCP IP connections. You don't need to worry about that. That's lower level network stuff. And the same thing with this upgrade and secure request portion. That has to do with trying to upgrade request um, to be more secure. You don't need to worry about that. The same with all this. It's not, it's not really important. The most important things here are your accept, your user agent, your host, and later on, if any cookies are there. So let's go to the response. So this is what the web server responded with. So they said, okay, acknowledged HTTP 1.1, and then our status code of 200 OK. If you read the book, you would have seen like there's 100 series, 200 series, 300 series, 400 series, and 500 series. Um, just in the past, you might have seen things like, oh, this is a 404 page. 400 series, of course, being client error, file not found, stuff like that. A 200 series is always acknowledged. I got this. Like essentially, okay, this is it. So servers will can differ between different servers will differ between what type of headers they send. This particular server sends back the date that they received this request, the server itself with all the information about it, and these are the interesting parts here. So this particular web application is setting a cookie. So in the response, they've sent us back this PHP session ID cookie uh, with this value. They've also they've sent it twice to be exact, and then they've also said, okay, security equals low. So that cookie, your browser is going to remember that, and any um, future requests, uh, these cookies will be set in the request section, just so that the web application knows that they've set these cookies previously, and they know who you say that they know that you are who they say is who you say you are. Um, this header right here, cache control, this is just saying, hey, this is just telling your browser, should I remember this page or not? In which case, for this one, no, don't remember this page. Um, so response headers will always have a content length. So this content length simply says how many characters are in the body of the response. This whole section down here being the body, different from the headers above. Connection close, same thing. And um, another response um, header here that's important is the content type. This is the type of file that was sent back, and which in this case is a text HTML file. So it's an HTML file. Easy enough. So what we're going to do now is we're going to we're going to log into this application, and you're going to see the request fill in. So for this particular application, the username is admin and the password is password. All right, let's look at that. So now we have a post request. So so we have a post request. And so you can see post and the login.p. This is where we're sending that URL. This is where we're sending our post body to. And then HTTP 1.1, so on and so forth. It's exactly like a GET request, except now we have post, we have a body, and we have a content length, which is this is the number of characters used. We have an origin header that's not always used, but it's simply saying, hey, this is the origin of where this request came from. The refer header, and you'll notice that refer is misspelled here. That is intentional. It's been like that forever. No one wants to fix it. All a referrer header is saying is what page was the user on when they sent this request. In which case we were on the login page, which is good. Uh, you can a common thing that web applications will do is to check the referrer to make sure you weren't trying to authenticate from, say, a third-party website. In which case that would be a red flag. And then lastly, the another important part here is in all post requests, you'll have a content type. Just like the response header content type, this is the content type of the post body. In which case, our content type is application slash x dash www dash form dash URL encoded. Um, with all classic HTML forms, this is the content type that you will see. You may see some other type of content types on post requests, and it's not hyper important right now, but it is something to take note of. So down here, you'll see username equals admin, password equals password, login equals login, and user token equals this mess of characters. You'll notice that the post body looks a lot like a query string in the URL. Um, that is intentional. That is meant to look like that. Um, so these are all parameters and values and separated by ampersands. Um, so normally, once you receive that response, this particular response is a 302 found. On a normal application, you would then see that they set a cookie saying, "Hey, you're authenticated." But this is a vulnerable web application. Our cookie, our PHP session cookie, was set when we first hit the login page, and they're just using that as the authentication token. Basically, they just said, "Oh, you already have a token? Oh, okay. Let's take that token, just make it your authentication token now." That's a vulnerability, but it's not. You don't really need to worry about that right now. Just know that on a normal web application, once you authenticate, once you send this post request to authenticate, you'll see a set cookie here and with your authentication cookie. One thing to note: this is a 302 found, which means it belongs to the 300 series of status codes, which basically means redirection. So how does it know where to redirect? Well, this location header right here. So this location header is saying, okay, take them to the host index.php. And then from there, we can just click around. Let me do this, right? And we can just click around here and you'll see all of our URLs that we're clicking on here are showing up in Burp's proxy tab. And you can see all the requests and the responses. And then anything that you do like this will show up here as well. That's interesting because they had um, a they had a login portal and the results are in a GET request query string, which is not a good thing. So this is just to go over some of the requests and responses and their correlated headers and some other basic information.